Well, hello again, everyone. Very welcome to this sixth session of the visual presentations part that is sort of starting before the actual PCST conference. I'm very glad to see all of you here. My name is Jan Riese. I'm from Sweden. Well, not really. I'm from Norway, but never mind. I live in Sweden and work at the Chalmers University of Technology with sustainable development, but I've been in this science communication business for very many years. I'm very happy to see you all here. I have a few very simple rules that we should stick to during this presentation. It's for the presenters to stick to 3 minutes, no more. I will keep this wonderful device to to keep track of that. And so I may say something when you come up towards 3 minutes and say, please wrap up now, and because we need a time for Q&A at the end, and that I will say to the attendees to put your questions in the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screen and write them down there, and I'll pick them up at the end. What else is there? There is, for those of you who use Twitter, which of course all of you do, please use the hashtag PCST2021 when you write something, PCST2021, and it will all end up in the same story, you know. We'll have a poll at the end. We'll ask all attendees to vote for the, well, best presenter or best presentation, whichever you like. And we'll then sometime later ask the best presentation to take part in another session like this and do the presentation one more time. We have an order of presenters, and it starts with Rita Campos from Portugal, and very timely, I have to say. You have a talk called "Let's Talk About Climate Change," but when do we start? What about starting now? Rita, the screen is yours.
Okay, thank you. I'll share the screen. So in fact, this is an activity that was created within the framework of a ongoing research project led by my colleague Jose. And he and his team are trying to pinpoint the genomic basis of coat color change in species of hares and weasels. So you can see them in the corner, top corner, the left. So they turn from a brown summer to winter white, which is nice if there is snow, but climate change is decreasing snow coverage, so they are endangering the survival of this species. The same way climate change is endangering the survival of many other species, human included. So climate change is something of a big issue. It's been studied for years in the scientific community. There's a lot of consensus, there's a lot of knowledge, but there are still some resistance and some misunderstanding of the impacts of climate change in the, outside academia. So this particular activity was targeting school children, elementary school children, so between 6 and 10 years old. And it was presented, we presented ourselves as scientists, talked a little bit about the project, talked about the species, talked about climate changes, asking them what they knew about climate changes, asked them to draw what they knew or write if they could write. And then we invited them to be our partners in the project, and we played this game that mimics natural selection, and they could see what could happen to these species if they continue to change to white winter coat without snow. And the activity proved to be highly engaging. So there was a lot of conversation that we talked about climate change, we talked about nature of science, what is to be a scientist, human-induced changes. But strikingly, there was almost all children stated that they never heard about climate changes and that they didn't know about it. So our claim is to direct more efforts of science communication projects for this particular public. So maybe we should start earlier to discuss these issues, and this activity proves that we can engage these younger children in these more complex topics. And so this is more about the activities and the ongoing research. And thank you all. I hope I managed. I rushed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rita. Great. You made it with like 8 seconds to go. That's fine. Excellent. And it's a very important topic, of course, that you discuss, and I hope we can come back to that during the Q&A session afterwards, how children perceive and get to know about climate change. After all, they are the ones who are going to take over this later on. Let's cross the Mediterranean and go to Egypt, to Mohammed Daoud. You are here, aren't you? There you are. And you have a comparative study on science festivals, which is very interesting. I used to work with science festivals a lot a few years ago. And comparative between United Kingdom and Egypt. Please go on, and I'll start counting now.
Great. Hello, everyone. So my name is Mohammed Suleiman. I'm a Science Communication Officer at the American University in Cairo. So my visual presentation is about a comparative study I did on science festivals between Egypt and the UK as part of my master's thesis at the University of Manchester. So as you know, basically to start, there are a lot of activities that you can engage the public into science. And one of them obviously is Science Festival. So what is a Science Festival? For the sake of this research, I define Science Festival as the following characteristics. So the first one is the focus of the Science Festival has to be a celebration of science, technology, engineering, or any related aspects. The intention of the festival has to be to engage non-specialists with the scientific content. And the event has to be a time-limited and recurring, usually on annual or biannual frequency. And there is a common theme or branding for all the activities. So why I'm doing this research, why research in Science Festival? So because Science Festival is appearing to be growing dramatically. For instance, in the US between 2009 and 2014, there are nearly 4 dozen new Science Festival initiatives have risen between these 2 years, about in just 6 years, sorry, or 5 years. So, and Wellcome Trust funded review actually described Science Festival as a good articulation of cultural significance of science and technology. And over 5.6 million people reached by science festivals annually. Despite all of what I mentioned, a little research have conducted to compare between more than one festival, and most of the literature were biased toward English-speaking countries. That's why I've done my research. So basically, what I've done to collect data is I've done semi-structured interviews. So 3 representatives from the Egypt side, Cairo Science Festival, Egyptian Science Week, and Zuwayr Science Festival, and from the UK side, Manchester Science Festival. And this is the focus of my research. So because of the time constraint, I'm going to jump into the conclusion. I'm not going to show the results, but please ask me later if you're going to have a look for any of the results. So for my recommendation to have a good science festival, first of all, the motivation. So according to the results of my research, I defined and categorized all the science festivals either to go under a large umbrella, already existed organization, mostly museum or university, or to go alone just to start your own initiative, or to collaborate with another teams to start some sort of organization, but with limited decision-taking power. Secondly, objectives. You have to have a clear and inclusive vision for your festival and to engage the public in your preparation, in your conversation, and encourage them to take part of the science process. For the target audience, there are plenty of multiple audience that you can engage, including adults, kids, families, researchers, and the community in general. So for the chronicle development, from my research, I found that obviously that Manchester Science Festival is the oldest one, and then followed by, after 6 or 7 years, followed by Cairo Science Festival, and then Zuwayr Science Festival, and finally.
Mohammed, I need you to wrap up here, and take
Yeah, this is the
final
last bit. For finding resources, you have plenty of finding resources, as you see. And finally, for duration, you have to pick the best time in terms of weather, vacation, or national celebrations. And in terms of activities, there are plenty of them. That's it. These are my references, and this is my poster if you want to have a go. Yeah. That's it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Excellent.
I tried to wrap it up everything in just 3 minutes. It's just
yeah,
so hard to do.
Almost. We don't argue about that right now. That was a very nice presentation. I know there's a lot to say about Science Festival, but let's move on. Let's come back to you in the Q&A session. And for all of you who are attending this, please put your question in the Q&A under the Q&A icon at the bottom of the screen. Let's cross the Atlantic, no, not the Atlantic, the Mediterranean again, and we'll arrive in Italy, and Laura Daricello, who will talk about virtual reality for increasing the awareness of scientific research. Please, the screen is yours.
Yes, please enjoy my video. Welcome to an amazing journey where the latest research in astrophysics become immersive environments full of wonders to be explored. But let's start from the beginning. INAF, Istituto Nazionale di Astrofisica, is the Italian public body in charge of performing research in all the astrophysics and space physics domains and to promote it worldwide. It has a long-standing tradition in developing digital tools to analyze astrophysical phenomena, and in 2019, some researchers of the INAF Palermo Observatory started a project to visualize astrophysical phenomena in virtual reality. The project is named 3D Map VR, which is the acronym for three-dimensional modeling of astrophysical phenomena in virtual reality. The 3D models produced are very accurate and full of details about shape, temperature, density, chemical composition, and other physical characteristics, thus making it easier for the researchers to analyze and understand the objects they are studying. We immediately recognized the enormous potential of 3D Map VR for communicating astronomy to the public and increasing the awareness of current scientific research also in the young people in order to include the next generation in the cutting-edge scientific debate. Thus, we published 4 galleries of models on Sketchfab, which is a widely used platform for the diffusion of content in virtual and augmented reality. And this was very effective to spread our models, and it also caught the attention of international institutions and companies with which we started collaborating. We also produced several videos and documentaries in the framework of 3D Map VR with virtual and augmented reality effects. In the last 2 years, we tested these 3D models in dissemination activities and verified their tremendous impact in many other occasions before the pandemic. INAF is developing an experimental education program based on 3D real data models integrated into a virtual reality environment where front-run scientists can virtually meet and interact with students. In October 2020, we decided to publish on YouTube and share on social networks a web series made of 9 episodes with videos that use 3D Map VR models. This particular approach is useful also in case of reduced in-presence events. I'm Laura Daricello, a technologist at the INAF. Don't hesitate to contact me for further information on this subject. 3 minutes sharp. I cannot hear you.
Oh, that's not very, I had muted myself. But thank you so much for the presentation, very good. And this is the public engagement, no, it's called Engaging the Public session. So we'll have all the reasons to come back to this in the discussion afterwards. how virtual reality science festival and talk to children about this is working. But we'll have another 7 presentations before we come that far. So now we go to Brazil, to Aline de Oliveira Coelho, who will talk about the revision of the international system of units and the challenge to communicate it, the Brazilian case. Are you prepared and ready to start? Please go on.
Yes, thank you. And welcome to Brazil and our challenge to communicate the revision of the system of units. I'm from the National Institute of Metrology and Technology in Brazil, in Metro. And do you know what's metrology? Metrology, not meteorology. Yes, and we know it's a really difficult science to engage, and I really know science, and we had this challenge, and we used the SI revision to make it more public and let people know about us. So let me just open it here. Better. Yes, and we had the SI revision, and we have 7 units, and one time we have 4 units changing and being revised. So we had the kilogram, the ampere, the Kelvin, and the mole revised, and the BIPM, the Bureau International de Poids and Mesures, the International Bureau of Measurements, they decided to do a task force. We have 60 countries joined the BIPM, and the 60 countries state members decided to join us and do an international campaign. And it started in 2016. And the changes were being, how can I say, promoted in 2018. So we had some meetings and we decided to use the, here in Brazil, we decided to use more the social media and just because we are a really big country, we are a public institution, so we don't have so much money. So we decided for the first time to use the social media to do this campaign. And we did some videos, some cards, some how can I say, some designs. And in 2018, we started to do the campaign, and at the end of the year, the changes were, how can I say, confirmed, it was voted, approved. So we did 29 posts in a period of 1 year, just about the SI revision. And in these posts, we categorized them about campaign, events, press, commemorative day, and we decided to give some points. We had, how can I say, some points to the engagements. So we counted the reactions, the shares, the comments, and we elected the better posts and the worst posts. And in the end of the campaign, who had more than 400,000 people involved all around the world, we saw that it was a really successful campaign. We have a good approval in Brazil. Around the world, the results were really good. And the results with the BIPM, they, how can I say, they said they looked for the results of each country, and they decided that Brazil results were really good too. So it was a really successful campaign, in our opinion.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So good to know that even such things as the unit system can be communicated and engaging people in a nice way. Don't forget the Twitter hashtag if you do that. It's PCST2021. And now let's move on to Carolina Logante from Spain, who will dive into the very central question to engagement about scientists' opinion and attitude towards citizens' understanding of science and their role in public engagement activities. Please, Carolina.
Okay, let me share the screen. So you are seeing my screen, isn't it?
Right.
Okay, perfect. So, well, I'm Carolina Llorente from the Study Center on Science, Communication and Society of the Pompeu Fabra University, which is in Barcelona, Spain. So in this research, we wanted to know scientists' opinions and attitudes towards citizens' understanding of science and their role in public engagement. So far, so little was known about the perception that the Spanish scientists have about society and communication, and also about outreach actions that they are involved in. However, in Spain, the Spanish Foundation for Science and Technology has been conducting every 2 years since 2002 a survey about public perception of science. So we have some insights on Spanish society's perception about science and technology. But what we want to know was, what do scientists think that society thinks about science? To do so, we have analyzed more than 1,000 answers from Spanish scientists to an online survey. The results of this study show that there are differences between scientists' perceptions and what the FACIT studies report. For example, as the second profession most valued by society, after doctors, we found scientists. However, when we ask researchers about what they think that society thinks, their professions appears in 7th place. Also, results show that scientists believe that research is an unknown profession and that society does not have a true sense of activity researchers do. Regarding the level of scientific education of Spanish society compared to the rest of the European Union, we have seen that researchers have a more negative perception. On the other hand, researchers consider there is a high social interest in science and technology, and that the outreach and science communication is a shared responsibility among researchers, journalists, and the specialized science communicators from their own centers and universities. However, we have seen that scientists' perception about the capabilities of citizen understanding of science and technological issues decreases as the age of researchers increases. Our study also shows that there is a tendency to receive specific training in science communication between young researchers. This could explain the more positive perception about social understanding of science and technology. So it is necessary to increase the knowledge that researchers have about target audiences. Knowing what researchers think about society's perception and its own role in communication and outreach is useful if we want to design strategies to promote public engagement in the research process. In addition, it can provide interesting knowledge to take into account when designing communication strategies that are more aligned with society. For example, with the whole issue of vaccines and the COVID pandemic, the need for something like this has become more relevant. And finally, to encourage the involvement of researchers in public science communication activities, this must be formally recognized for professional promotion. And thank you for your attention, and I will be willing to answer any question you have.
Thank you very much. Great presentation and a very, very central topic to what we're talking about today, engaging the public. So we'll get back to that, I'm sure, right after this the presentations. And we'll have one more now from, we'll have a presentation now from Kenya. Cynthia Mancho will talk about engaging with media, the Kenyan perspective. So please, if you feel ready to do this, the screen is yours, Cynthia.
Sorry, Jean, I was still on mute. You're able to see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. So I think it was just good that I go after Caroline, because my topic really sort of like extends to what she's speaking to. So, sorry. So basically, traditionally, researchers are known for their their role in, we believe that our role in this, disseminating our research is just left to, given to the point of just disseminating it and then building capacity internally for the purposes of being able to communicate with media. On the other hand, we also face poor research reporting due to lack of journalist skills and maybe just interest, a lack of interest and lack of capacity within the journalistic front. We also have poor research and journalist relations, and this is actually the whole point of this engagement. We realize that because of the lack of relations between journalists and researchers, we were not getting adequate science reporting in our media, from our media teams, and we were not then able to actually get the benefits that we could have gotten from the media, considering the role that media plays in our societies in agenda setting and ensuring that we have evidence-based policy, advocacy, behavioral change, and even achievement in scientific growth in terms of funding and all that. So we sought to create a platform that will allow for in-depth conversations between researchers and journalists for the sake of just building mutual understanding and also resolve the mistrust issues that were between researchers and journalists. We also created opportunity through this engagement for improved research synergies for purposes of ensuring that actually the research that we were doing was being uptaken. And another objective was also to ensure that there was mutual learning between researchers and journalists. How did we do this? We brought together a number of researchers, and you can see that from the screen, for a media engagement workshop that was modeled to support cross-learning between these two groups, and then also ensure that we were able to iron out the differences that we had between the teams, and also ensure to ensure that all this was being done in an environment that was going to support true learning. We out of this engagement, surprisingly, the participants themselves recommended that we go ahead and do a media tour. And from the pictures that you're seeing on your screen, you're able to see the various engagements that we have. So finally, what results did we get? We got an increased number of media outputs across different platforms, that is in print media, radio features. We got to get new items in various TV programs out of that engagement. Internally, we were also able to introspect as researchers and ask ourselves which would be the best way to actually communicate some of our research outputs, given the challenges that we had gotten from the journalists. We also had improved quality of reporting.
Cynthia, please, I need you to wrap up here. Can you go to the most? Okay,
thank you. So some of the lessons learned are what I have indicated there. There is more desire for engagement, importance of including neutral voices in the conversation, and the need for continued capacity building. And this work was funded by the Wellcome Trust, and some of the teams that were involved are there, and you can reach me on that contact in case you have any queries. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm sure we can come back to that as well. And please, if you have some questions, please put it in the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, and we'll ask them after the final presentation. We have now one from Konstantinos Minas from the United Kingdom about community learning and development. What has STEM got to do with it? Please, Konstantinos, the screen is yours. 3 minutes from now.
Thank you so much. So I'm here to talk about a collaborative project between the CLD teams of Aberdeen Shared Council and Aberdeen City Council and Aberdeen Science Centre. So the aim of this was to empower CLD practitioners by giving them the confidence to engage with STEM in their own particular settings. We started this by 5 sessions where we directly trained the CLD practitioners, and then the CLD practitioners themselves adopted the activities that we showed them, including how to use science capital in practice. and they created some more activities, which their colleagues saw, and they then adapted and created some more STEM activities that started happening all over the place. Were that their learners had an amazing level of satisfaction, and this helped us make a digital course with the same resources. This is the name of the course. And now we found that there's over 1,500 people from 95 countries engaging with the same materials. If you're interested, we've put a lot of information in a case study book, which you can find here. And thank you so much for listening.
And thank you so much for talking to us about this. Excellent. Thank you, Konstantinos.
Thank you very much.
And please, to all of you who listen to this, keep in mind that there will be a poll at the end of the presentations asking you to select the most, or which presentation you thought was the best one. So let's just get on with this list of presentations. We'll go back to Brazil for a couple of presentations now. Tarcio Minto Fabrício will talk to us about how to understand Brazilian scientists' motivation towards public communication of science. In 3 minutes, please.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tarcio and I speak from Brazil. My country is going through a deep crisis, and not only because of COVID-19. The crisis started in 2019 with a new federal government that insults scientific evidence in a daily basis. That, together with ever greater cuts in the science budgets, brought the scientific community to the public arena, claiming for support and highlighting the relevance of public communication of science efforts. To better comprehend how this community understands the goals of such efforts, we've analyzed a sample of news published in 2019. We've analyzed 186 events from 129 news selected due to the presence of manifestations about why and how to talk about science. You can see our results on the slides. The predominance of the category to promote scientific culture shows advances in the sense of looking at public communication of science as an effort that goes beyond scientific institutions, building bridges towards other social spheres. However, the analysis indicated also the need for more detail in the category. We also noted that the voice of science remains the main one in defending the need for public communication of science. I don't have the time to address our results in detail. What I would like to highlight here in the emergence of reflections related to dialogical communication, we value as a promising path towards better STS relations, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic. I would like to thank FAPESP for the funding of this study and you all for listening. Thank you.
And we would like to thank you for the presentation. Very nice and very good and interesting. I'm sure we can come back to this as well during the Q&A part after the final 2 presentations that we still have to go. And I would like to welcome, I hope, Adriana Santos, or this is the thing about co-authors. Many of the presentations or many of the articles that's behind them have more than one author, and we have had the opportunity to see only one. But Adriana Santos is the name here, and we have had some discussions about how to transfer the login to either to her or someone else. But anyway, it'll be about science in Brazilian and Canadian pubs, so it's an important topic. And have you got the presentation now, Adriana?
Okay, good afternoon. I will share the screen a moment. It's okay? Yeah?
We don't see the full screen though, but if you can't find it, it'll work anyway.
In full screen. I am Adriana Santos, and I'm from Brazil, in the Universidade Federal de Uberlândia in Brazil. And I am going to present an article with Mirna Tonos about science in Brazilian and Canadian bars, public communication of science, initiatives at Pint of Science in Brazil, in Uberlândia, and Canada, in Ottawa. In Ottawa, the event Pint of Science took place in 3 bars with 9 themes and with 2 actions in each theme. The bars are the 3 Brewers Sparks, Bar Malone's Lakeside Bar and Grill, and the Royal Oak Bar. The themes. In Uberlândia, the event took place in 2 bars only, with 6 themes and 3 activities in each theme. We have observed the communication of science in Brazil and Canada, and with data presented here specifically the Pint of Science in Brazil and Canada. In general, in 2 countries, in 2018, in Ottawa and in Brazil, Uberlândia and Ottawa, events happening in bars, in pubs, basically involved the public already involved with science, so teachers, science students, and not our people in the society, for example. Involved only the people, the public academic, for example, okay? Some places in Canada, it's possible different results, but in Ottawa, the university not involved directly, and in Uberlândia, the university was directly involved. I and Mirna would like to thank Pay for It Forward Funding, University of Aberdeen, for making this participation possible. And I am sorry because Mirna was presented, but don't know receive the link. Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you, Adriana, for doing this in Mina's place. Excellent. I know there's sometimes trouble with the links. They are all personal, and it's a little bit tricky to change between. But I think you did very well, and the 2 of you have have obviously made an important contribution to this. We know about presenting science in other places than at the academy or elsewhere in pubs. Let's see now. We have one final presentation from Vinod Singh from India. Are you here? Maybe not. If so, we will have to be without a presentation about technology, lifestyle diseases, and economic burden. It seems that we're missing one presenter here, and I'm sorry about that. That means that we'll have 9 presenters here and 9 presentations, and we'll take it from here. Please, all of you, put your questions, write down your questions in the Q&A, and I will pick them up. And first of all, thanks to all the presenters. Thanks for your excellent presentations, interesting and many different aspects of engaging the public, which is so important in this particular field that we all are working in. So with that, I am supposed to put this poll out while you still remember who did what, and I'll keep it up for, the question is very straightforward. Who do you think gave the best visual presentation in this session? And this is only for the attendees. We who are involved in this cannot vote. I'm sorry, but I think that's fair. So while you think about other questions and while you do this, I could pick up the first question here from Germana Barata, one of our colleagues in the PCST team, and she writes like this. Carolina, thanks for your presentation. I read your paper with students. It is very interesting. Could you tell us about SciComm training available Spanish scientists at Universitat Pompeu Fabra or in Spain? There's a growing demand for short-term SciComm courses, as in Brazil, but it seems we are focusing on training future science communicators and not necessarily scientists, better communicators. Would you like to take that question, Carolina? And please, the rest of the panel here, please think about that question. Are we trying to train future science communicators or not, or are we talking about scientists to become better communicators? Carolina, if you like.
Okay, thank you very much, Germana, for this question. But well, precisely in the Universitat Pompeu Fabra, we have, of course, a master degree on science communication, which is devoted to become a professional science communication. But for example, at the biology degree, we offer a specific subject. It's an elective subject, but we offer them on science communication for scientists. We also have courses on science communication at PhD level, and I'm going to share with you on the chat a specific paper that Gemma Revuelta did about this issue on training science communication in science degrees. It's focused in Spain, and but perhaps it's interesting for you. So I'm going to share with this. And yes, I think that we have to train both. It's a different way of training. Of course, being a better communicator it's every day more important for a scientist, which is devoted to research, not for science communication. But in the daily life, they are going to face on talking with different publics, on talking with colleagues, on talking with media, on writing papers. Even more, they are asked to write short post blogs and everything. So I definitely think, and it's my personal opinion here, but I definitely think that we should start training scientists on science communication as part of the complete skill set that they are going to need to become better researchers.
Anyone else who would like to comment on this question? No. Can I add one thing for Carolina? I noticed when you showed this thing about the older scientists were the ones with the least training, and you would think after a long career that you have had plenty of chances to do that training. But on the other hand, there was the younger ones who had either been offered or taken, or maybe are more positive towards the training. If you have any comment.
In our study, we asked them for formal studies. on science communications who have taken some kind of courses, included or not included in the degree. And yes, the youngest had more tendency to have been trained, formally trained on science communication. However, the most elder cohorts, they tend to answer that they learn from the experience. That of course, being forced to communicate, have this opportunity to learn, but it's not formally trained. So that's the differences between them.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to comment from your country?
May I?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, I'm a co-author. I'm together with Tarcio here. And I think the Germana's questions is, I think Carolina's work is very interesting. It's dialoguing with ours. And I think Germana's question is very interesting because what we are seeing in Brazil, and that has a lot to do with our work, is because always when we have a big crisis, and perhaps we are living the biggest in this moment, scientists, as we've said, go to the public arena and to defend the necessity or to discuss the necessity of communicating science. But then in this moment, we have a lot of scientists or many scientists talking about science, not only in the main media, but also in social media. And we are very concerned about how we are doing this, because I think now the pandemic has shown that it has not worked till now, or it has not worked as we wanted it to work. And we think that it has a lot to do with how we are talking about science. So what I would like to highlight is that I think this reflection that Germana proposes has to consider not only how to talk about, for example, difficult concepts or scientific concepts and scientific knowledge, but also how to be, for example, or how to build the capacity of being critical towards science, or how to really, as we've said, talk to people not only about science, but about life, considering also the scientific knowledge, but not only. I think that's what I've thought after Germana's question and this dialogue with Carolina's work. Thank you.
Thank you for that. There's also a question here to Cynthia, saying this, Luisa Barbosa asking, Cynthia, following Carolina's answer, did scientists engaged in your initiative change the perception about science communication? Did you have a chance to measure this? Do you wish to say something about that, Cynthia?
Yes, thank you for that question. I think, yes, the change in perception is there. However, hesitancy is something that I think we can only get to unpack with time. So some of the hesitancy that we get with the researchers, especially that when we were working in this project, was due to past experiences. So some of those things have to be unlearned and understood in the context of what was happening at that particular time, for them then to be able to change their perception. And one of the things that we learned when we were doing this project is that it's not going to be a one-off training. It's not going to be capacity building for one session or one course, and then you expect people to change their perspective. It's something that will have to take time. And the additional aspect to this is also bringing the other people in the conversation. So for example, when a scientist is being trained to talk to, for example, the public, do they have the opportunity to actually practice this and have members of the public and talk to them and be able to understand what the issues are? What we have done during the COVID-19 time is we've pushed our scientists out, but we've also formed advisory committees, like for the researchers who are mainly in the front line with the media. We've formed a media advisory team that they would then speak to the media practitioners themselves and then now understand this is how I can go about this, because it is experiential learning rather than just classroom science communication training, for the purposes of ensuring that these learnings are taken in positively. And yes, we've had a lot of positive vibes from the younger researchers. Honestly, they are the champions of all the work we do. And we get the more older researchers tend to be a little bit hesitant, but with time, they get to understand the value, and then they see, okay, fine, I actually just need to do this. It's not a matter of whether I like to do it or not. I need to do this for people to understand my research and be able to take it up. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Meanwhile, thank you for that. I think we can go on with this. I'd just like to tell you that look in the chat. There was a question from Paloma Subieta to Mohammed about his paper, where he kindly wrote his email address. And if there are others among you, attendees or panelists, who would like to write and ask for the Science Festival's United Kingdom and Egypt story, please write to him. I will do that after this presentation. Now let's go back and see. There's another question for Cynthia, actually, from Mirna Tunus. Cynthia, as a journalist and professor researcher of journalism, I'd like to ask you if you could give us a couple of tips for journalist students interested in science for helping this engagement demand. So back to you if you'd like to answer this. And by the way, meanwhile you're thinking a little bit about this, I will end the poll. It's been open much more than I thought, but I now have the answers I think we need. And thank you everyone for casting your votes.
Yeah, so in response to that, what to do with your journalist students, I think also what we have done in our setting, we have a very vibrant capacity building initiative within our center. And primarily that was for researchers rather than science communication or journalist students. So we have adopted a mode where we actually get them to come into the center and shadow researchers for a point in time. And then on the other hand, we also get internships to come, competitive internships for them to come and stay with us for about 6 months as they practice their journalism in terms of writing articles and putting them out there. They are also walking the day-to-day life of a researcher, just for them to understand what it is to actually do science. Because one of the things that we have come to realize is also a lack of understanding for a journalist may mean they will write whatever they feel or whatever they think is the science that you're representing. But if they have a feel and understand what you're going on a day-to-day basis, they can be able to relate better. I hope I've answered.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let me see now. Then there are not many more questions, but I'd like to go back a little bit anyway, because there's one theme that I'm very concerned about, and it's about children. And the first presentation that Rita Campos did, you mentioned that you were a little bit surprised that very many children did not, they haven't heard about climate change at all. And I find that a bit scary, to say the least. Of course, mostly it's us as parents who have the most responsibility. But I was wondering if you had any sort of reflections on that afterwards, if there's something you think you would like to improve or make differently to add to children's and young people's knowledge about climate change.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I was surprised also because some of the schools I visited are within this program that, at least in Portugal, it's called eco schools. So they talk about environment and recycling and stuff. So I would expect that at least in these schools, they have heard about climate change, and some of the children were like 10 years old, so were about to move for a different school. So I was quite surprised that they said they'd never heard about it. I was not prepared to talk about, you know, like the basics of climate changes, like raising temperature, and particularly here in Coimbra, because we were just been hit by a huge storm. There was a lot of damage in the cities, in the houses, but they didn't even connect that this kind of smaller events with climate change. So I was talking about this with some friends from my research center. They are geologists, but they are also addressing climate change more on the mitigation part of this. And maybe one thing that we need to do is because some children, oh, the polar bears. So that there's these big events, but maybe we should start to communicate these smaller events that are happening in our doors, because all these massive rains or massive winds or massive fires that we are having here in Portugal, these are marks of climate change. So maybe this is one of the things that we should start to do, start to bring climate change to our lives. So this is not something that it's happening far away in Polar North or South, or this is happening here with us. So maybe that's one way to start.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I have my own daughter and she has no alternative. She hears about it all the time, but that's that's me, I guess. But I think more of us, just as parents, not only researchers or communicators, need to think about that. There's one final question, and then I think we'll wrap this up. And it's from Karina to Adriana. That is simple but still very important question. How do you think the event Pint of Science could involve more of the general public? If you would like to elaborate a little bit on that. Adriana, you...
Yes, I think it's necessary that people feel part the event, and the scientists they use the more simple language. For example, the event is much formal. The presentations are formals. In Oral e Uberlândia. I don't know in another place, but in Uberlândia, in Otal, the presentation is very formal and the language is very scientific.
Thank you. I guess there are always things that can be improved. Is there anyone else in the panel who would like to add something to any of these questions now? So please do. We have another 30 seconds or so. Then you just have to speak up.
Should
Otherwise,
I add to
yes, please.
I tried to raise my hand, but you couldn't see it. Anyways, I want to add to what Rita said about climate change. So I've been lucky to work in one of the science centers in the UK, and one of the very creative initiatives that started in the UK called Operation Earth. I don't know if you've heard of it or not, but it's a really, really good initiative. They have loads of science shows and science workshops that is geared toward children, school children. And it's a really, really good show. It's tackled down a lot of topics like the air particulate, like biodiversity loss, and a lot of interesting topics in terms of climate change. So I would recommend that if you give it a look. And one last thing I want to add regarding getting researchers' interest in science communication and public engagement in terms of the research. So a lot of universities all over the world, they have this kind of department. They call it public engagement department. And I've been working as science communication at one of the universities obviously in the MENA area in Egypt, it's called American University in Cairo. So we found a lot of a challenge to go to researchers and talk to them through publishing their research to the public through different kind of activities. So I would like to highlight that one of the recent activities that I've done with the researchers was about treasure hunt. So yes, I convinced researchers to participate in a treasure hunt to actually communicate research about rainforest and about their ecology research. So it's really, really good. Try to talk to them, try to convince them, try to talk about the importance of how to get in the public audience, specifically if their projects is a citizen science projects like the one I've done. For instance, this project is about collecting sounds from the forest, and it's rely on the input from the public audience. So it's really, really good. This is one of the angles that you can approach to researchers to convince them. And there's a lot of ways you can do that. You can actually start with really low end of spectrum of activities, like how about you can do AMA Reddit, which is Ask Me Anything on Reddit. It's not going to take any time. They're not going to actually participate with the audience in direct. So just like you can have like a lot of ways from low end of the spectrum of activities to high end of the spectrum of activities like the one I did, Treasure Hunt. So yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. It's wonderful to hear your enthusiasm about this, and I hope that it's contagious and we all get a little bit of that because we need it, and we need to talk about climate change with the children, and we need to talk with journalists, and we need to do everything we can to make this world of science more accessible for everyone else. With that, I would like to thank the panel and the attendees, everyone who's been taking part in this. Don't forget the hashtag PCST2021. If you now go out sort of more relaxed and say, oh, I have to write something about this, please do. And don't forget that there are 3 more sessions like this next week, one on Tuesday and one on Wednesday and one on Thursday. First one about science communication theory and practice, the second one about education and science shows, and the third one about museums, exhibits, and art. From my point of view, I'd just like to say thank you. Have a nice rest of the day, evening, night, wherever you are. And see you again next week, I hope. Thank you so much for taking part. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.